So an armed bystander killed an active shooter. And I thought it was just really interesting. I read everything I could about the incident and was fascinated by it. And I started to think, between all this stuff, I was having these conversations about gun rights and everything. I thought, this could be the backdrop for a novel. And I'm just crazy enough to try to write it.
Pull up a chair, set the world aside. Let's find the truth we keep trying to hide.
It started as a feel-good story, a college tailgate, a camera rolling, then gunfire. One man stepped in, stopped the shooter cold, caught on video. The footage went viral. The bystander became a national hero, but reporter Pete Lemaster saw something no one else did. The deeper he digs, the deadlier it gets. Someone wants him silenced. Fame has a price. The Bystander, a razor-sharp mystery where fame hides a secret. An award-winning debut novel from author John David. Pre-order now.
Welcome to Across the Table. I'm your host, James Finochio, and today we have with us author John David, who is a debut novelist, longtime public relations and crisis communications consultant, author of a nonfiction business book, which is How to Protect or Destroy Your Reputation Online. His first novel, The Bystander, The Master Files Book 1, which is part of a 3-part series, was named one of the best thrillers of 2025 by bestthrillers.com, won the 2025 Page Turner Award for Mysteries, was longlisted for the BPA First Novel Award, and was awarded as a finalist for the 2025 Story Trade Book Award for Traditional Mysteries. The Bystander was released by Thule Publishing in September 2025. John, it's great to have you with us, man.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I see you've been doing the podcast trail.
Yeah, I've been out, trying to find a readership, man. I'm hustling.
Heck yeah. So tell us about your book, The Bystander. How did you even get the idea for the novel?
Well, it started, it was almost now 4 years ago, and I had this couple of things happen in my life. The first one was that I had a barbecue at my house, and my brother was there, my brother-in-law were there, and they're both veterans. And we were having this conversation about guns. And I don't know if you have siblings or a brother-in-law, but whenever those conversations happen in my life, it's usually them telling me how wrong I am about everything. I don't know what I'm talking about. And so, but I learned a lot about the gun show loophole and gun rights and just sort of how things happen in that world. And so it was really interesting. And then more importantly, in July of 2022, there was an active shooter incident at a mall in Indiana. And a guy went into the mall and he killed 3 people, started shooting, had a assault rifle, started shooting. But there was a guy in the food court at the mall who was carrying his handgun, and he took out his gun and he shot and killed the active shooter. So an armed bystander killed an active shooter. And I thought it was just really interesting. I read everything I could about the incident and was fascinated by it. And I started to think, between all this stuff, I was having these conversations about gun rights and everything. I thought, this could be the backdrop for a novel. And I'm just crazy enough to try to write it.
because this isn't your first stint at writing. Like you've written other things.
Yeah, so I wrote a book that came out in 2016 about online reputation issues, and I've been a writer my whole career. I went to journalism school. I've been a public relations consultant for 30 years, and so I am, I write all the time, and so I've gotten become a better writer over time, I believe, and sort of everything kind of conglomerates to get me to the point where I felt like I was confident enough that I could write a novel.
Because writing a novel, like, what's that experience between writing a novel and say like doing a short story? Or I mean, obviously it's longer, but like, what are the differences between what you usually write and writing a novel?
Well, for me, it was a big departure, but at the same time, I read so many mystery novels in my life, and read so many different books and novels, and so I kind of knew the form. And the fact that I'd written a business book in the past, I kind of knew what it took. So I knew, okay, this is a substantial thing I'm writing. I'm not just, and I have to have an understanding where it's going, and I have to really commit to a really, you know, I guess significant story. It's not just like one idea. It's got to have depth to it. And so all those things kind of came together and helped me.
Yeah, having that background, you felt like that definitely gave you at least a better foothold on trying to get started writing a novel versus going in and just trying to write one.
Yeah, I think it'd be really hard to just start and do it. If you hadn't, I mean, for me, it would have been harder. I think I knew what it takes to get to the end.
Yeah. It's never getting started. It's always finishing something. It's never just,
Yeah,
it's never done.
yeah,
And you're like,
yeah,
ah,
yeah. I've actually found it's the middle. So for me, it's like when I start, I generally have an idea of how I'm going to start and how I want it to end, but it's then sort of weaving it all together in the middle is the harder part.
so like when you go back, like say you want to change something, do you feel like there's a butterfly effect like throughout? Like if you change one thing, you end up having to change a bunch of other things in order to make the story jive.
Well, it's a good question, and I was going to answer it sort of in a simple way, but you're right. I think that as I go along, the big picture things all have to make sense. So I can't go and like it's like I can't get three-quarters of the way through. It all has to make sense, like every step of the way. Now, but you can go back and change a few facts here and there. You can change a character here, you can change a point here, but the overall arc has to stay the same. Otherwise, you're rewriting the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple buddies that I told you about their authors and they ended up scrapping. Well, they put it in storage because they were like, oh, this has to change. And then it just changed everything, or they had too many characters or whatever. So, what made you choose Pete?
So my protagonist is a television reporter, and when I had this idea of I want to look at this active shooter thing, I'm like, okay, what perspective can I give it? And it just kind of hit me naturally that I could to use a television reporter because I'm a PR consultant by is my job, and so I know lots of journalists and I understand that world a little bit. And so it was kind of a natural for me to kind of get in there and use that as my angle of approach.
You know, it's weird, John. When I was reading some, I thought it was you. The narration in my head, it automatically went to your voice. I was like, ah,
Some of it, yeah, I mean, I think my main character's sensibilities are me, but sense of humor maybe is me, but everything else is made up.
And he was definitely a Florida Gator fan.
That's pride of authorship. You know, I, I get to choose, who he roots for.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't have him rooting for Georgia.
That's for sure.
And now, so as the story develops along, you bring in other things, like gun control, certain things with veterans, and like what made you decide, or did it just kind of play into it, or did you decide to put it there?
Well, the gun issues were at the forefront from the beginning, because I think that's central to the story. I mean, and I didn't set out to, like, I don't know, take one side or the other. I was just trying to tell the story because it's a really complicated issue and it's controversial, and you have people who believe in one side of the gun rights issue and folks who believe on the other, and so you get this. To me, that's a natural tension point. So I followed that, and then there were some issues with veterans that kind of just came up, that I just, based on some real things I'd encountered, and that's where it came from.
Yeah, I try to not delve into too much, so I'm not giving anything away.
Right.
It's like, oh, because it is definitely a page turner. Yeah, once you start reading, you don't want to stop.
I appreciate that. That's what I was going for.
And so, I heard you put it to someone else that you were not a plotter, you're a prancer when it comes to figuring out your material.
Yeah, pantser, plotters versus pantsers. That's usually the question I get asked a lot. Did you come up with the whole thing, or did you have a big outline? And for me, it's a little bit of both. I don't have a massive outline. I kind of know where I'm going to start, and I know where it's going to end, because that part has to make sense. But then the journey is where the magic happens.
And so, now it's because you're not just developing one character, you're developing at least three strong characters. And how complicated does that get in the way that you're thinking about, like, how do you jump from one person's head to the other to see the situation from a different way?
Well, it's part of the process, I guess. I mean, my novel's written in first person, so it's really the voice of one person, but you have to shape the characters who are in the novel. And for me, I try to tell it as best I could without getting too complicated with too many characters. Sometimes you read a book and you get lost. Or, like, particularly for me, it's hard if I'm reading in the first few chapters of a book and I don't know who's who. It makes it hard. And so I'm cognizant of the fact you can lose people if you make it too complicated. So I really focused in, and I felt like I needed just a handful of characters to really tell the story, and there's some tangential characters that come in later.
So who do you feel like your target audience is with this book? Who would be most apt to?
Well, the reality is that most readers are women, so I should be focusing on women. um, but it's the murder mystery crowd. It's the thriller crowd. That's who I really am focusing on.
That is interesting because, like, among females, that they're like the true crime is like what they love the most, or stuff like that. In romance novels. Um, Tell me a little bit about your getting published, because I understand that's very, very difficult to even broach that.
Yeah, it's a real slog. it's hard. I mean, the if you want to be traditionally published through the big five publishing firms, so there's really five companies in the world, the English language speaking world, that publish books, and they all have imprints. It's it's Simon and Schuster and Random House, and there's five, and then they all have sub imprints, I guess, but they really control the market. And the gatekeepers to the big five are literary agents. So if you want to be published by a big five publisher, you really have to get to a literary agent. And that's its own process. And I attempted that process. And I spent about a year and a half trying to find an agent, and without any luck. And then I ended up pitching some smaller publishers directly. And that's where I had traction and got a couple of folks interested in my book.
Well, I'm sure that they do some marketing for you, but you're obviously doing a lot of your own marketing, trying to make sure that you get it out there. Because like, what all did they help? What all did the publisher help you with, and what would that be like versus self-publishing?
That's a really good question. Primarily, I think that the publisher, they're in the space. They know what sells. They give you credibility, because they get pitched dozens, hundreds of different stories, and they chose mine as one of the few that they think they're going to publish this year, kind of thing. But then they give you editing, and I mean, I had an editor who made my book better.
Mm-hmm.
Simple as that. I mean, I could have published what I had. It wouldn't have been as good. Right.
Yeah.
And then they know about cover design and what works for the title of a book, and look and feel, and then getting it into the distribution channels is primarily what they do, and then they help out a little bit with getting reviews. And my publisher really focused on promoting the series.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of kind of promotion of the first book, it's kind of landed on me.
Mm-hmm.
I've decided that I'm actively pushing to try to get my first book moving as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully start to get a little more I don't know, inertia.
Yeah.
when the second book comes out in May.
Nice. So the second part is coming out in May.
Yeah, the second book's done. It's actually I've got review copies out there. I've already gotten some feedback on it. So far, so good.
Good. It seems like you make your character very human, and I think that's endearing as a reader, that he not be an altruistic asshole. Nobody likes that.
Everybody's flawed, right? There's nobody's perfect. And so I think it helps if you make your characters flawed. I mean, most of the time you see it in storytelling. It's much less interesting. Tony Soprano is a much more interesting character than just a guy who runs a bar, right? I mean, he runs a bar, and he also kills people. So that's more interesting than just a guy who runs a bar.
True story. and it's fiction. And I heard you talk about also that, of course, you base certain characters based on people that because who else? But it's still fiction. It's still fiction.
Yeah. I mean, I'm influenced by a lifetime of being in interesting situations and meeting interesting people. And, some things that I've brought into my books have happened to me in one way or another. And a lot of them are just made up, or just things I've heard over the years. And then there's certain people I've come across who are just interesting people, and so you kind of weave some of their characteristics into your characters.
or mush them together.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm curious about your character development. Like, how does that work when you're developing this character and you're trying to think about how deep into it do you have to get? I suppose is what I'm asking.
It's a good question. For me, typically what happens is the character has to fill kind of a purpose first. So my protagonist is the one who's telling the story, and I brought in a um, police officer into my character mix because I felt as though my character was going to need that insight to try to solve the crime. It was going to help him to get through it if he had that additional information. And so, and then I kind of made that police officer character also his like romantic entries. So, and I wish I could say I mapped it all the way out, but I mean, I don't know, 3/4 of the way I mapped it out.
Yeah, some things you just don't aren't interested in.
And then there's other characters and they're sort of filling a role. And as you're writing them, you realize, oh, wait, I could do this. I could do that. I could make them, this person could be much more interesting than, I originally really thought. And I, for example, one of my earlier drafts, I hired an editor and there were several things that he looked at and he said, you should come back to that character. Like, you just touched on a character. That character could be really interesting. And so go with that. And that's why where great editing helps. Like having a good editor really helps.
Because nobody likes to see red lines all over their work, but there's things that an editor can help you with that you're just not going to see from what I understand. I don't have editors.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the the biggest role for me for the editor is just that other perspective. And the blocking and tackling of writing, getting the words right, getting the subject verb agreement and all that stuff. I got that. That I can do. I've been doing that forever. And, I have no, and sometimes I'm verbose and they say, cut that out, do this, change that. And I've been edited so much in my life because I write for my clients, and it's ultimately their thing that I'm writing. So I'm okay with that. But the edits have to be, sensible. I had one lady I sent some of my, I guess my first chapter or so to, and I asked her for her opinion on it, and she kind of sent it back to me rewritten. And I was like, I don't think we can work together because I didn't ask you to rewrite my stuff. I asked you to give me a few pointers here and there, give me a couple of places where you think I can punch it up. And all of a sudden I'm looking at this work and it's not mine, like that's not the point. I'm not asking you to change my voice. I'm asking you to just, should I trim somewhere? Should I write something somewhere else? And so it's really, it's a trick to get the right editor that works for you.
Now, what made you go into the conspiracy thriller area? Did the story just lend itself, or do you like those rabbit holes too?
That's a good question. I think it was, for me, it was sort of a natural way for the story to go and a natural way for it to resolve itself. I'm not a big conspiracy guy. But what's funny is that over time, I've seen more of them, so like years ago, things that years ago there was a situation at the New York Times where there was a reporter for the New York Times who was claiming that he was going to these different places and writing these firsthand accounts, and he never left his couch.
What?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a famous thing.
I can't believe I didn't hear about it.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll find the history and send it to you. But the reality is that some of these conspiracies are not conspiracies; they're real. Like they actually happen. And so that's always interesting to me too.
I'm curious, being that you've dealt with media a lot and that you understand there's narratives that are pushed, like how much does that play on, like with your background, is it easy to show that a narrative is being pushed?
Oh, I think so, for sure. I mean, I don't know what TV network you'd be more likely to watch. Okay,
Not really any.
not any, none of them. Okay. Um, but if you look at the TV news, cable TV news, maybe not over the past 4 years, but if you went back 10 years ago and looked at Fox News or CNN or CNBC, and then you compared those newscasts to now, you'll see dramatic changes. And it just depends on what where you sit on the fence or where you're on the table or where you are in the political spectrum. Um, but you'll see that the coverage has changed. Generally, what's happened is that the networks, major cable networks, they've become more kind of polarized, and so I don't want to say, Fox is doing this, CNN is doing that. I think they've both kind of gone to their poles, and that's been happening. And so the agendas, you can see the agendas. They're like, listen, we know that Fox and CNN and CNBC, they know what gets eyeballs. So those things get more attention. It's the same thing with sports. I don't know if you watch ESPN.
I used to.
But it's like all NFL football, like 360 days a year.
Yeah.
Like right now, you were mentioning, it's the NCAA basketball tournaments going on right now. So yeah, they're giving a little bit to that, but in a week,
draft picks.
It's going to be talking about draft and free agency, and then it's going to be, then it's going to be whatever, spring ball or training camp. And God forbid there's a high profile, free agent who hasn't signed yet. I mean, for example, when Aaron Rodgers was in play a couple years ago, you turn on ESPN, and that's all they talked about. And it's because, for whatever reason, folks found that interesting. Whereas when I turned it on, and I'm like, I was playing the game, I was like, oh, sorry to talk over you there. But it's almost like drinking. You turn on ESPN, and it's like, how long is it going to be before they mention Aaron Rodgers, right? And that's like I would turn off the TV in the morning because like I can't just continue to hear what's next for one guy
when there's so much other sports going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your book's also on audiobook now, isn't it?
It releases April 20th or 22nd, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because I love to have the audiobook. Whenever I can. Sometimes it's nice to read, but sometimes it's hard to find time for it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you sit down and just try to read, whereas I can do stuff and listen to an audiobook, it's way nicer for me. But when I got to sit down and read, I sit down and read.
I do a ton of audiobooks. Big fan.
I know we have a library of them. I'm just like, oh my gosh, where do we get all these? AI, where do you think that's going? Because I find it helpful for a lot of things, but I don't think it AI like but we can both read something and tell that AI wrote it, unless it starts getting better, unless it starts getting way better.
Well, where's AI going? The answer is everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
When it comes to writing, I think it can help and it can hurt.
Hmm.
I've had clients of mine like take something that I wrote and decide, well, we want another version of this that we can send someplace else. And then they dump it into AI and they make another version. And part of me is like, wait a second, you just took my work and you're repackaging it. But, they paid me to write it. So ultimately it's theirs. They can do whatever they want. Um, I think that is very helpful in a lot of, professional contexts that you can take your notes and say, turn this into an email. And so you're using it to do tasks which sort of inherently suck.
Yeah,
And that's a good thing.
yeah, yeah. When you're doing a bunch of research articles, like what used to take it would take days to do some of the research you can do now, and you can do it within hours and scrape, all kinds of sources off the internet and get an overall, you know, it's very helpful. And then for grammar, it's helpful if you're using the right AI.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. I think everyone's using it for grammar, like Grammarly programs and stuff like that. It's been around for a long time, and it's valuable. It's actually changed how a lot of things are punctuated.
Like the Oxford comma.
Yeah, I think that the Grammarly helped bring the Oxford comma back. And I started running my stuff through Grammarly years ago because I knew my clients were doing it. So I want to make sure that when I send them something, that they didn't send it back to me with a bunch of Grammarly changes.
And have AI correct you.
Yeah. But generative AI, that's a whole other thing, And for example, I had a conversation with my son a couple of years ago. He's now in the workforce, but he was in college, and he asked me about AI. And my wife, who actually works in higher education, her kind of knee-jerk reaction was, "Don't use AI, don't use AI." And I said to my son, "Listen, don't go to AI, go to ChatGTP and ask it to write a paper about Hamlet. Don't do that. But if you take your notes and put them into ChatGTP and use them to outline something, it's a great piece of technology. As long as you're using your own intellectual property and you're having AI help you with it, then I think that's fine. But where you end up getting in trouble is when you rely on it and you don't really, check your own facts. You're not putting in your own opinions. Then you get into trouble. So
Yeah, having doing the work is important. And like people can tell when someone didn't write something themselves. It's a given. I don't know why humans just have this sniff finder. We're like, oh, that's not authentic. That's not real. But if you use it, like even when we set up our podcast and stuff like that, we use chat heavily to do all the electronic work. And it took a week-long process and turned it into 8 hours.
Right. There's AI software out there that'll take your video clip and turn it into 20 little small clips and then shoot it out and send it out for you. Whether that's good or not, Whether the clips are good or not, I don't know, but the technology is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, because we couldn't just take, oh, this one says it'll be 99 to go viral or something, and you go through and you pick them because AI doesn't know what humans really like at some points.
Yeah, I think we're still learning. We're still figuring it out.
Hmm. Now, one more thing before I let you get out of here is what's one of the most overused words today that we didn't used to hear? Well, let me put it that way, because you know how the media and stuff, they like to start inserting words. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna wait for you, and then I'm gonna say mine.
I can go long on this. Empower,
Uh huh.
facilitate,
Uh huh.
transparency. There's a million buzzwords out there.
I'm so tired of hearing existential. I could just smash my head off a window.
You're having an existential crisis over the word existential. I had a very bright lady who worked for me years ago, and I told her, like, these are words that I don't, I'm gonna scratch them for anything you put in front of me.
Yeah.
And one of them, a word I've hated forever, is facilitate. And empower is another one. And one day I was looking through the files, the network files, client files, and there was this file and it said words John hates. And I opened it up and she had made a list of all the words that I said I don't like.
That's great.
The other one is utilize.
Yeah.
Why say utilize when you could say use?
I don't know. It's like these made up junk words. It's like candy words.
I saw an article that said college professors are sniffing out AI because of the word moreover. That AI uses the word moreover and nobody uses moreover.
No.
The only time people use that word is when they're trying to learn some heavy grammatical structure, like in high school. And that's the only time you ever use moreover. So if you see moreover in a document, it's maybe AI.
Yeah. I think a priest is the last time I heard moreover.
I guess it was moreover your number of Hail Marys, I guess.
I guess.
The other thing with AI is that I think it has a lot of benefits, but I think sometimes we're taking simple things and making them more complicated with AI. Like you can ask ChatGTP a pretty simple question, and it gives you this pretty long answer.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it you don't need.
Where it needs to go more like Nietzsche and say less.
Yeah, some of that stuff's finding its way. It's finding its way into all of our stuff, and we're like, we got way more info than we really need. We just need a yes or a no, and we're getting a page.
Yes. Well, John, where can everybody find you at, John? Because I know that, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to want to read this book. If you like a page turner, you're going to want to read it. Where can they find you, John?
You're very kind. So the Bystander is available everywhere books are sold online. So Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, and Google Play and Apple, whatever, and all those places. And then my website is ijohndavid.com.
Great. We will add the links to the description. And hey, I saw your trailer on YouTube.
Man, you have done your research.
Yeah.
What'd you think of it?
I liked it. I don't know if we're allowed, but we'd like to pop it up on here if we can. Cool. Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe we'll start it with that.
I loaded it onto Amazon and they rejected it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it starts off and it says gunfire and there's gunfire, pow, 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 and they didn't like that.
Yeah, well, at least we know it'll go up on YouTube.
Yeah, it's on my YouTube channel. So
yeah,
that helps. Or if you want,
we'll do it for the listeners of this.
Yeah, and on I think you can download it from my website if you want. Just like if you go, there's a section of my website that says called media assets or something like that. And I think there's a direct link for that.
Great. Hey, thanks a lot, John. It's been fun having you on, man. Good luck to you.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. Peace out.
My team and I know how valuable your time is, so we wanted to thank you for making Across the Table part of your day. By liking, sharing, and subscribing, you help keep us inspired and motivated to continue creating content for all of our listeners. If you have ideas for the show or would like to be a guest, please contact me via email at james@acrossthetablepodcast.com. That's james@acrossthetablepodcast.com. Thank you.
Pull up a chair, set the world aside. Let's find the truth we